The night was silent, but the stars above were brighter than ever. The human soldier, Captain Ray Carter, slowly opened his eyes. His head was spinning. His body felt heavy, and his memory was broken. He tried to remember what had happened, but all he saw in his mind was fire, flashing lights, and then darkness. Now he was lying on the ground in a forest that was not like Earth. The trees were tall and glowing with blue light. Strange flowers opened and closed as if they were alive, watching him. The air was thick but sweet, filled with soft mist that made the forest look like a dream. Captain Carter stood up slowly, his boots sinking into the strange, soft ground. He whispered to himself, "Where am I?" He touched the small device on his wrist, but it was broken. No signal, no help. He looked around, his soldier's mind scanning for danger. Then he heard it, a sound, soft footsteps, but not human. Carter turned quickly, ready for a fight, but what he saw froze his heart. There she was, a figure stepping out from the glowing mist. Her skin shimmered like pale silver under the starlight. Her eyes were large, bright, and full of emotion. She looked like no human, yet she was beautiful. More beautiful than any woman he had ever seen. She wore a flowing dress made of light itself, shining softly with colors he could not name. The strange woman stopped a few steps away, watching him with curiosity. Her lips moved, and she spoke in a soft voice, a language he did not know, but somehow he felt the meaning in his heart, as if her words touched his mind directly. He did not know what to say, his soldier's courage shaken by her presence. So with a nervous laugh, he said the first words that came to him. "Hey, babe." For a moment there was silence. Then something happened that shocked him more than anything else. The alien woman's face turned red. Not red like blood, but a glowing blush across her silver cheeks. She looked down shyly, then lifted her eyes again and whispered, "Yes, baby." Carter blinked, confused, his mouth opening but no words coming out. The forest seemed to grow quieter, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The woman smiled softly, a smile full of innocence and mystery. Carter felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. He was a soldier, trained for war, for danger, but never for this. Never for the sight of an alien princess calling him baby. He wanted to ask questions, but his voice felt trapped in his throat. The woman raised her hand, and the glowing plants around them bent gently as if bowing to her. She pointed into the forest, a silent invitation. Carter hesitated, every part of his mind warning him not to trust, but something in her eyes told him she meant no harm. Step by step, he followed her. The forest opened like a living tunnel. Lights, glowing brighter as they walked, he saw strange birds with crystal wings flying overhead. He heard water flowing somewhere, but it sparkled like liquid stars instead of ordinary streams. Everything felt like a dream, yet it was real. The woman walked with grace, but every now and then she turned back. Her eyes met his, and each time she blushed again, Carter felt his heart racing. This was not normal. This was not in any mission report. This was something beyond science, beyond training, beyond Earth itself. At last, they reached a clearing. In the center stood a tall crystal structure, rising like a tower. Glowing from inside, it looked both natural and built, a mix of magic and technology. The princess placed her hand on the crystal, and suddenly, light spread across the ground. Symbols appeared under their feet, ancient and strange. Carter stepped back, his soldier's instincts ready for danger, but the woman turned to him, her soft voice calling out again. He could not understand the language, but once more the meaning reached his heart. "You are not an enemy," her voice seemed to say. "You are meant to be here." Carter's chest grew tight. How could she know him? How could she speak into his heart? He whispered almost to himself, "Who are you?" The woman lowered her eyes, her voice trembling with emotion. "I am Princess Elira," she said, though the words came without sound, only meaning. "And you, human, are the one I have been waiting for." Carter felt the ground shake beneath his feet. The forest. Lights flickered and the tower's glow grew stronger. He realized that whatever this was, it was bigger than him, bigger than Earth. And now, he was part of it. The alien princess looked at him again, her blush glowing bright, and she whispered one more time. "Yes, baby." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with mystery. Carter did not know if this was the beginning of love, war, or something far more dangerous. But one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. The night in the alien world never felt truly dark. Stars shone brighter than Earth's stars, and the glowing plants painted the forest with soft blue light. Captain Ray Carter followed the alien princess through narrow paths, his heart beating. Fast, every step felt like a step into a dream, but the sharp instincts of a soldier warned him to stay alert. Princess Elira moved ahead with grace, her silver skin glowing gently under the starlight. She did not speak with her lips, yet Carter felt her words inside his mind, soft, warm, and strange. "You are safe here," her voice whispered into his thoughts. But safety was not what he felt, because everything around him was unknown, and unknown always meant danger. They entered a wide valley and Carter froze. In front of him stretched a city, not like any human city. Towers of crystal rose high into the sky, glowing with colors that shifted like liquid. Bridges hung in the air with no support, as if the laws of gravity did not exist here. And everywhere, strange alien people moved with calm grace, their silver faces lit by soft inner light. The princess stopped, watching Carter's reaction. Her large eyes glowed softly as if searching his heart. Carter swallowed hard, forcing his voice to remain steady. "What is this place?" Elira's lips curved in a small smile and her voice touched his thoughts again. "This is Aloria, my home, my kingdom." Carter stepped forward, eyes scanning the city. Some of the alien people turned to look at him, and their gazes were filled with shock and whispers. He could feel their voices brushing against his mind like tiny echoes. "Human," they whispered. "A human has come." The soldier inside him stiffened, ready for hostility. But no one attacked. They only watched. Elira began walking again, leading him through streets of crystal that glowed under their feet. Carter tried to act calm, but his heart was restless. He had fought battles on Earth and seen strange things in space, but nothing like this. He asked again, his voice low. "Why did you bring me here?" Elira glanced at him, her cheeks glowing faintly red again, the same blush as before. "Because you are the one I was told to find," her voice whispered. Those words made Carter's chest tighten. He stopped in his tracks, his eyes narrowing. "Told by who?" The princess looked down, her hands trembling slightly. "My people and the prophecy," she said, though her voice shook with hesitation. Carter felt a chill crawl down his spine. He never believed in prophecy. He believed in orders, missions, and survival. But here was a princess, an alien leader, saying he was part of something written long before he arrived. They entered a hall inside one of the glowing towers. The walls shimmered with moving patterns like stars flowing in rivers of light. In the center stood a round table carved from crystal, shining with symbols that pulsed as if alive. Elira touched the surface and the table came to life, showing images in the air. Carter stared in silence as alien visions unfolded before him. He saw two races locked in endless battle. One race looked like Elira's people, glowing and elegant. The other was dark, twisted with sharp bodies made of shadow and fire. The images showed destruction, cities falling, armies retreating. And then, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A figure of a human, standing among the glowing people, leading them in battle. It looked almost like him. Elira turned to him, her voice trembling with emotion. "For years, we believed the human warrior was only a legend," she whispered. "But now you are here." Carter clenched his fists, shaking his head. "No, this doesn't make sense. I didn't come here to fight for a prophecy. I didn't come here to be anyone's savior." But deep inside, a small part of him wondered if fate had truly brought him here. Elira stepped closer, her eyes filled with both hope and fear. "I should not even be speaking to you," she admitted. "My people forbid contact with outsiders. They believe humans are dangerous, unpredictable, too wild." Her voice grew softer, almost breaking. "But I do not believe that. I believe you are the one who can change everything." Before Carter could answer, the crystal walls shook with a deep sound. A loud horn echoed through the city, and the glowing symbols on the table turned red. Elira's face turned pale, fear flashing in her eyes. "They are coming," she whispered. Carter stood tall, his soldier's instincts snapping back to life. "Who's coming?" he demanded, his hand already reaching for the broken weapon at his side. Elira's voice was heavy. "The Shadowkind, our enemy, they know you are here." Carter felt a storm of emotions crash inside him. He had just arrived in this strange world, barely understanding it, and already enemies were hunting him. He looked at Elira, who stood trembling yet determined. For a moment he saw not just a princess but a fighter, a leader with fire hidden under her gentle beauty. The ground shook again, louder this time. Screams echoed from the streets outside, as crystal towers flickered and dark shapes moved in the distance. Carter clenched his jaw, his voice low and steady. "Then I guess your prophecy is about to be tested." Elira met his eyes, her blush returning even in fear, and she whispered again, "Yes, baby." The city lights dimmed, the enemy shadows drew closer, and Captain Ray Carter knew the secrets of the alien princess were only the beginning. The crystal city of Aloria was shaking with fear. Alarms echoed through the glowing towers, and the streets filled with rushing figures. The people of Elira's kingdom were graceful, intelligent, and advanced, but as the shadow of the enemy grew closer, Carter saw something that shocked him. They were afraid, deeply afraid. He had seen fear before, on Earth's battlefields, in soldiers' eyes before combat. But this was different. These alien people looked strong, yet they hid like fragile children. Their crystal weapons glowed brightly, but none dared to lift them. Carter clenched his fists, his voice cold. "What's wrong with them?" Elira's eyes lowered, her voice heavy with shame. "My people, they have forgotten how to fight." The sound of explosions shook the air. From the city's edge, dark creatures of shadow rose, twisted forms of claws and fire. The Shadowkind, the ancient enemy. They poured into the glowing streets, burning towers and filling the night with screams. Carter's soldier instincts took control. He grabbed a fallen weapon from the ground, a crystal blade humming with strange energy. He turned to the nearest alien soldier, who trembled and froze in place. "Get up!" Carter shouted, his voice like thunder. But the soldier only shook his head, fear locking his body. Elira's eyes filled with pain as she whispered, "We are strong in mind, strong in spirit, but weak in battle. That is our curse." Carter gritted his teeth, rage burning inside him. "Then watch how a human fights," he growled. The Shadowkind charged forward, black claws reaching, fire glowing in their hollow eyes. Carter moved like lightning, the crystal blades slicing. Through the first monster, its body shattered into sparks of shadow, vanishing into smoke. More came, rushing like a wave, but Carter stood tall. Every strike, every move was filled with raw strength, training, and courage. The alien people gasped, watching in shock. Their weapons hummed with power, but their hands shook, too afraid to use them. Carter fought alone, his body moving on instinct, his voice roaring like a storm. He shouted commands as if his fellow soldiers were beside him. "Hold the line. Keep formation. Strike when they come close." But no, one moved. Only Elira standing at his side, her face pale but her eyes burning with courage. For the first time she lifted her own weapon. A staff glowing with light, she struck one of the Shadowkind, her body trembling but her spirit strong. Carter saw her bravery and gave a sharp nod. "That's it, princess, don't stop now." Together they fought back, wave after wave. Carter's strikes were rough but powerful. Elira's were graceful but filled with new fire. The Shadowkind fell, their dark forms breaking apart. The people of Aloria watched, their fear clashing with awe. A human and their princess fighting together, something they had never imagined. But the battle was far from over. The ground split open, and a massive figure stepped out. A Shadowkind general towering over the city streets. Its body was made of molten fire and shadow armor, its eyes glowing like burning stars. The people screamed and scattered, hiding inside their crystal homes. Even the bravest soldiers dropped their weapons. Carter tightened his grip on the blade. Elira whispered, her voice shaking. "We cannot face him. No one has ever defeated a general." Carter's eyes blazed with determination. "Then maybe it's time someone tried." The giant creature roared, shaking the ground. It swung a massive claw, breaking towers with one strike. Carter leapt forward, dodging the attack, his body rolling across the crystal ground. He rose to his feet, blade glowing, heart racing. This was no ordinary fight, this was survival. He struck, sparks flying as the blade clashed against the monster's armor. The force threw him back, but he stood again, spitting blood. "You're tough," he muttered. "But so am I." Elira rushed to his side, her staff glowing brighter than before. "I will not leave you," she said firmly. Her blush returning even in the middle of war. Carter smirked, sweat dripping down his face. "Good. Then let's show your people what courage looks like." Together they attacked, Carter striking low, Elira striking high. The general roared, fire pouring from its body. Every blow shook the ground, every strike tested Carter's strength, but he refused to fall. He refused to show fear. The princess fought beside him, her eyes no longer trembling but burning with determination. Slowly, the people began to step out from hiding. They watched as a single human and their princess stood against a monster. Their fear began to fade, replaced by something new. Hope. The general stumbled, its armor cracking under Carter's blade. Elira focused her staff, pouring all her power. Into one final strike, light exploded from her weapon, hitting the general's chest. Carter roared, driving his blade deep into the glowing crack. The monster screamed, its body shattering into pieces of shadow and fire. Then it fell, vanishing. Into smoke, silence filled the city. The people stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. A human had done what none of them could. The Shadowkind general was dead. Carter stood breathing heavily, his body bruised and cut. Elira's staff lowered as she stumbled, her body weak from the effort. Carter caught her before she fell, holding her close. Her cheeks glowed red as she whispered faintly, "Yes, baby." The people of Aloria slowly stepped forward, bowing their heads. For the first time, they looked at the human, not with fear, but with respect. And Carter realized something. The strength of humanity was not in weapons or technology, it was in courage. The courage to fight when all others gave up. And now, the alien princess had found that same courage within herself. The battle was over, but Carter knew the war had only just begun. The fires of battle still burned faintly across the city of Aloria. Shadows of the enemy had been pushed back, the monstrous general destroyed. But the people were not celebrating. They were whispering, their silver eyes turning often toward the human. Captain Ray Carter stood at the center of the ruined street, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Beside him, Princess Elira leaned on her glowing staff, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. The people bowed when she passed, but their eyes narrowed when they looked at him. Their whispers were sharp and heavy, carrying doubt and suspicion. "A human does not belong here," one voice said. "He brings danger to our city," said another. Yet some voices were softer, filled with awe. "He fought for us. He saved the princess." Perhaps the prophecy is true. Carter could feel the weight of their stares pressing down on him. He had been judged before on battlefields, but never like this. These were not soldiers watching him. These were an entire people deciding if he was friend or enemy. Elira stepped closer to him, her voice reaching softly into his mind. "Do not fear their eyes. Many are blind with old traditions, but they will see in time." Her presence calmed him, but only slightly. He looked at her and spoke in a low voice. "Why do they hate me if I just saved them?" Elira lowered her gaze, her cheeks glowing with that familiar blush. "It is not hate, it is fear," she whispered. "To them, you are forbidden. Contact with humans is against our law, against our bloodline." Carter felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He had suspected something like this, but hearing it from her lips made the truth heavier. So I saved your life, and now your people want me gone? He muttered, bitterness in his voice. Elira shook her head quickly, her silver hair flowing like light. No, not me, never me. I am bound to you. Her words stopped him, his eyes widening. Bound, the word carried a weight deeper than simple affection. Elira's face burned red. As she turned away, her voice trembling. When I first looked at you, when I answered your strange words, I felt something I cannot explain, something forbidden. She touched her chest softly as if steadying her heart. In our culture, the bond of first response is sacred. Once spoken, it cannot be broken. Carter stared at her in shock. He had only joked, only said, "Hey babe," never expecting it to mean anything. But for her people, those words had sealed something powerful, something dangerous. Elira's eyes glistened, fear mixed with hope. They will try to take me away. From you, they will try to erase what has begun. As if her words were a prophecy of their own, footsteps echoed in the ruined street. A group of alien guards appeared, their crystal armor glowing faintly. At their lead was Lord Vaynar, a tall figure with sharp features and eyes that burned. With cold authority, he bowed to Elira with a forced smile, but his gaze at Carter was filled with contempt. "Princess, you must come with us. The council demands your presence." Elira straightened, her voice calm but firm. "I will go, but he stays with me," she said, her hand brushing lightly against Carter's arm. The guard stirred uneasily, Vaynar's smile twisting into a sneer. "Princess, with respect, he is an outsider. He is forbidden." Carter's jaw tightened, his instincts telling him to prepare for a fight. But Elira stood between them, her staff glowing faintly. "He is under my protection," she declared, her voice echoing through the street. The guards hesitated, bound by her authority, but Vaynar's eyes darkened. "This bond will bring ruin," he whispered coldly, loud enough for them both to hear. "Remember my words, human, you are not welcome here." Then he turned sharply, leading the guards back into the city's heart. Carter exhaled slowly, the tension easing but never leaving. He turned to Elira, his voice heavy. "You risk everything by standing with me." Her lips curved into a soft but trembling smile. "Maybe that is what courage means. I learned it from you." They walked together through the quiet city, past glowing towers and silent watchers. Carter could feel the walls closing in, suspicion and judgment everywhere. But when Elira's hand brushed against his, the weight of the world felt lighter. For a moment there was only her, the alien princess who had chosen him against all laws. That night they stood on a balcony overlooking the Crystal Valley. The stars shone brighter than ever, and the air was filled with silence. Elira spoke softly, her voice breaking the stillness. "My people see weakness as shame, but you showed them strength, strength they had forgotten." She turned to him, her blush glowing under the starlight. "And I see something more." Carter met her eyes, his soldier's heart confused but drawn closer to her. He had fought battles, lost comrades, carried scars. But he had never felt this strange bond, this forbidden fire. Elira stepped closer, her voice trembling as she whispered into his mind. "They may never accept us, but I will not deny what I feel." The moment hung in the air, heavy with silence and tension. The city still burned in the distance, shadows of war waiting at the edge of the valley. But here, on this balcony of light, a bond had been sealed. A bond that was not meant to exist, a bond that could destroy them both. Carter placed a hand gently on her shoulder, his voice rough but steady. "Then let them come, princess. I've broken rules before." Elira's eyes widened, her cheeks glowing bright red, and she whispered again, "Yes, baby." The stars seemed to burn brighter, as if the universe itself was watching. A human and an alien princess bound by fate, by choice, by forbidden love. And in the shadows of the night, unseen eyes watched them. The bond was not only forbidden, it was dangerous, and soon betrayal would test it. The peace of the night did not last long. The stars above the city of Aeloria flickered, as if warning of something dark drawing near. Captain Ray Carter stood beside Princess Elira on the high balcony, Her blush still fresh on her silver cheeks, but her eyes now troubled. She felt it before anyone else. A pulse in the air, a heavy tremor in her heart. Then the alarms rang, deep horns echoing through the crystal towers. The city lights turned, red, symbols flashing across the glowing streets. From the valley below, a dark mist began to rise, spreading like poison across the land. Carter narrowed his eyes, gripping the crystal blade still at his side. "They're here," he muttered. His soldier's instinct sharper than ever, Alira's staff glowed faintly as she whispered, "The Shadowkind. They march again." But this time it was not a small attack, not a raid. The entire horizon shifted with movement, an army of shadows advancing like a black ocean. Carter had seen war before, but never on this scale. He felt his blood heat, not with fear but with determination. The city's people gathered in panic, soldiers with glowing armor lined up, but their faces were pale, their bodies trembling. The memory of past defeats clung to them like chains. Alira's council shouted orders, their voices shaking, their commands confused. Carter stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Stop running, stop crying. Look, at them," he shouted, pointing at the advancing shadows. "They are coming to destroy you, to erase your homes, your families, your princess." His voice grew louder, filled with iron. "If you stand frozen, you are already dead. But if you fight with me, you will live." The aliens stared at him, some with disbelief, some with hidden sparks of courage. Alira moved beside him, her staff glowing bright, her voice echoing through every mind. "He speaks the truth. Courage is not forbidden. Courage is our only hope." For a moment, the people were silent, their fear breaking under her words. Carter raised the blade high, shouting, "Then fight! Fight for Aloria!" The first wave of Shadowkind reached the city walls. Dark claws scraped against glowing crystal, their screams filling the air. Explosions shook the towers as the battle began. Carter leapt into the fray, slashing through the first enemy with raw strength. The soldiers hesitated, then followed, their weapons finally lifted. The streets of Aloria became fire and chaos. Shadowkind poured in, crawling along the walls, breaking into the glowing houses. Carter moved like a storm, his strikes wild but precise. He shouted commands, guiding the alien soldiers. "Hold the line, cover the weak, strike together." His voice, his courage, gave them strength they had forgotten. Alira fought at his side, her staff sending blasts of light into the enemy. She was no longer the shy princess who blushed at his words. Now she was a warrior, her eyes burning with determination. "Stay with me," Carter shouted, his voice rough. "Always," she whispered, striking down another shadow. The battle roared louder, towers cracking under the enemy's weight. Then, a new sound rose, deeper, heavier. From the mist, massive beasts of shadow emerged, their bodies like mountains of claws and fire. The soldiers faltered again, their courage trembling. Carter's heart pounded, but he did not step back. Instead, he climbed onto a broken tower, raising his blade high. "Listen to me," he roared, his voice reaching every corner of the battlefield. "These monsters bleed, they fall, they die. You just saw it, and you will see it again. Do not bow to fear. Fight with me. Fight with your princess!" The people roared in answer, their voices shaking but rising. For the first time in centuries, they fought as an army. The great beasts struck, crushing streets under their weight. Carter ran straight toward one, his blade glowing as he leapt onto its back. He hacked, slashed, his body burning with pain and strength. The monster roared, trying to shake him off, but Alira focused her staff. Light surged upward, striking the beast in its chest. Together they brought it crashing down, but victory came with blood. The enemy pressed harder, pouring into the city like endless waves. Carter's body ached, his arms heavy, but he refused to fall. Every strike he made inspired those around him. Alira's courage lit her people's hearts, pushing them to fight beside her. Still, in the shadows of the battlefield, Carter noticed something. Not all the enemy were outside. Some were inside. Dark figures moved through the city's heart, opening gates, weakening defenses. It was not only an attack, it was betrayal. Carter's eyes narrowed, his teeth grinding. "There's a traitor!" he hissed. Elira turned to him, fear flashing in her eyes. "My counsel," she whispered. "Some do not want you here, some believe you are the curse." Carter spat on the ground, rage burning. "Then while we bleed, they open the door for the enemy." Elira's hand trembled on her staff, her heart torn between duty and trust. The battle raged louder, the enemy pressing harder with every moment. Carter grabbed Elira's hand, pulling her close, his voice fierce. "If we don't find the traitor, this city will fall." Elira looked at him, her blush faint even in chaos. "I will follow you, no matter the cost," she whispered. "Yes, baby," he answered, his smirk breaking through the fire. The war was not only outside the walls, the greater battle had already begun inside, and Carter knew the shadows were not the only enemies he had to face. The battle outside the crystal walls raged like a storm. The Shadowkind pushed forward, their dark bodies striking against glowing defenses, but inside the city, something more dangerous was moving quietly. Captain Ray Carter felt it in his bones, a danger sharper than any claw. It was not the enemy at the gates, it was the enemy within. Princess Elira followed close beside him as they ran through burning streets. Her staff glowed faintly, guiding them through smoke and shadows. Everywhere they looked, soldiers fought, citizens hid, and fear filled the air. Yet Carter's eyes kept searching not for monsters but for traitors. He had been a soldier long enough to know when a knife in the back was coming. They reached the heart of the city, the great crystal chamber where the council gathered. The doors were open, light spilling out, and inside voices shouted in chaos. Carter pushed forward, blade ready, Elira at his side. What he saw froze his heart with rage. The council stood divided, some pleading for unity, others screaming for surrender, and at the center stood Lord Vaynar, his hand resting on a dark crystal device. Vaynar's cold eyes met Carter's, and his smile was sharp as a blade. "You should not have come here, human," he hissed. Elira stepped forward, her voice trembling with fury. "Vaynar, what have you done?" The noble bowed mockingly, his voice dripping with venom. "What your people were too blind to see, princess, I have already seen. The prophecy is a lie. This human brings only ruin, and I will prove it." Carter raised his blade, his voice low and steady. "You opened the gates, didn't you?" Vaynar's grin widened. "I did more than that. I gave them the key, and when they crush us, it will be your fault for trusting him." Elira's eyes filled with shock and sorrow. "How could you betray your people?" she whispered. But Vaynar's voice rose louder, echoing through the chamber. "I did not betray them. I saved them. For when the Shadowkind rule, I will stand beside them, not in ashes, but in power." Carter's body moved before thought, his blade flashing toward the traitor. But as he struck, the ground beneath him erupted. Dark chains of shadow burst upward from the crystal device. Wrapping around his arms and legs, he roared, struggling. But the chains held tight, burning his skin with cold fire. Elira cried out, rushing toward him, but guards loyal to Vaynar blocked her path, their weapons raised. Vaynar stepped closer, his eyes full of cruel triumph. "Do you see, princess, this is the weakness of humans. They bleed, they fall, they die, and now your precious champion will die before your eyes." Carter fought against the chains, every muscle burning, his voice hoarse with rage. "Run, Elira, don't let him win." But she shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, I will not leave you, not again, not ever." The shadows pulled Carter down, forcing him to his knees. He felt his strength slipping, his vision darkening. Yet even as his body failed, his spirit burned brighter. He looked at Elira, his voice rough but clear. "Don't let fear control you. Fight them. Fight even if it kills you." Elira's heart pounded, her staff glowing brighter as tears filled her eyes. She turned to Vaynar, her voice shaking with fury. "You call him weak, yet he has done more in one night than you have in your entire life. He gave my people courage, something you never understood." The guards hesitated, her words striking deeper than any blade. But Vaynar raised his hand, the dark crystal pulsing with power. "Enough, princess. You have already broken our laws. Now you will watch him die." The chamber shook as the Shadowkind outside pressed harder against the city walls. Carter's body trembled, the chains cutting into him, his strength fading. He thought of Earth, of the comrades he had lost, of the battles that had broken him, and then he thought of her, the alien princess who had called him baby with a blush. For her, he forced his body to rise one last time, pulling against the chains with everything he had. The crystal device cracked under the strain, its dark glow flickering. Vaynar's smile faltered as Carter roared with all the fury left in his chest, but before he could break free, the chains tightened, driving him back down. Blood dripped from his arms, his breath shallow, his vision fading. Elira screamed his name, her staff glowing so bright it lit the chamber like a star. Yet she knew no matter how much power she had, she could not save him alone. Her choice weighed heavy on her heart, heavier than any crown. To save her people, she would have to surrender to the council. To save him, she would have to betray everything she had ever sworn. Her tears fell, glowing like liquid silver on the floor. She stepped toward him, ignoring the guards, her hand reaching for his. He looked up at her through fading eyes, his voice faint but steady. "Elira, don't cry. You're stronger than all of them." She pressed her forehead against his, whispering through her tears, "I will never let you go, not even if it breaks the stars." Vaynar's laugh echoed through the chamber, cruel and hollow. "Then you have chosen him over your people, princess, and for that they will curse you forever." But Elira's eyes hardened, her staff lifting, her voice fierce. "Then let them curse me, because I will not abandon him." The chamber trembled as her power surged. Light burst from her staff, clashing with the shadows. For one brief moment, the entire city shook between light and darkness, hope and despair. Carter closed his eyes, his body weak but his heart steady. He knew this battle was no longer his alone. It was hers, and the choice she made now would change everything. The city of Eloria trembled under the weight of shadows. The crystal walls cracked, the glowing towers burned, and the screams of the people filled the night. Inside the great chamber, Carter knelt in chains, his body broken, his spirit burning. Princess Elira stood above him, her staff glowing like a star, her tears falling like silver rain. And before them Lord Vaynar sneered, his dark crystal pulsing with stolen power. The Shadowkind poured through the gates, their endless army flooding the streets. The people of Eloria fell back, their courage fading once more. But in the chamber, a different fire was being born. Elira lifted her staff high, light exploding outward, forcing even the guards to step back. Her voice rang through the chamber, not soft this time but fierce. "And unyielding, my people, hear me." Her words echoed in every mind. "You fear the human, but he is no curse. He is our courage. He is our ally." She turned to Carter, her voice breaking with love and defiance. "And he is the one I will choose, even if the stars themselves fall." Vaynar roared in rage, raising the dark crystal high. "You are a fool, princess. You doom us all." The shadows inside the chamber thickened, the chains around Carter tightening. But Carter's eyes met Elira's, and in that moment something shifted. Strength surged through him, not from power, not from prophecy, but from her. With a roar, he pulled against the chains, his muscles tearing, his blood spilling. The dark crystal cracked again, its glow flickering. Vaynar's smile faltered, his voice turning to panic. "This is impossible," he hissed. Carter stood, the chains snapping, his body weak but unbroken. He took the crystal blade in his hands and pointed it at the traitor. "No, it's human," he growled. Elira rushed to his side, her staff burning brighter than ever. Together they faced Vaynar, the betrayer, and the shadows he had unleashed. The battle shook the chamber, light against dark, courage against betrayal. Every strike of Carter's blade cut through the shadows. Every surge of Elira's staff pushed them back. The guards who had doubted, the people who had feared, watched in awe. At last Carter's blade struck true, shattering the dark crystal in Vaynar's hands. The explosion of light and shadow threw everyone back. When the smoke cleared, Vaynar lay broken on the floor, his eyes wide with disbelief. "This was not meant to be," he gasped, before fading into the shadows he had served. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the distant roar of battle outside. Elira turned to Carter, her eyes wide with both fear and love. "The army still fights. The Shadowkind will not stop," she whispered. Carter wiped blood from his face, his jaw tightening. "Then we finish this," he said, his voice steady. They stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the burning city. The Shadowkind filled the streets, dark waves of endless monsters. The people of Eloria huddled in fear, their weapons lowered once more. Carter raised his blade high, his voice booming across the battlefield. "Look at me. Look at your enemy. Look at your princess." The crowd stirred, their eyes lifting. Carter's voice cut through the chaos, raw and unbroken. "You fear because you forgot who you are. You hide because you forgot how to fight, but tonight you remember." He pointed his blade at the advancing horde. "Because tonight you fight for your homes, for your families, and for her." He looked at Elira, her cheeks glowing red, her staff blazing with power. "And if you fall as warriors, not as cowards." The silence broke. The people roared. Weapons rose. Courage returned. The city itself seemed to awaken. Elira lifted her staff, her voice filling every heart. "Fight with us. Fight for Eloria." The final battle began. The Shadowkind charged, their claws tearing through stone, their screams shaking the night. But the people of Eloria did not run. They fought side by side with Carter and their princess. Crystal blades clashed with shadow claws. Light burned against darkness. Carter led from the front, his strikes fierce, his voice never silent. Every command, every roar of courage pushed the army forward. Elira fought at his side, her staff bursting with pure light, her spirit unshaken. Together they were a storm, unstoppable, unyielding. And slowly, the tide began to turn. The Shadowkind general rose from the mist once more, a towering figure of fire and shadow. Its roar shaking the city to its core. Carter gripped his blade, his body broken but his spirit burning. "This ends now," he growled. Elira's eyes filled with tears, but also with fire. "I am with you, always," she whispered. Together, they charged. The general's claw swung down, but Carter blocked it with all his strength. The ground cracked beneath him. Pain burned through his body. But he held. He held for her. Elira raised her staff, pouring every last drop of her power into one strike. Light and courage fused, blasting through the general's chest. Carter roared, driving his blade deep into its core. The monster screamed, shadows tearing apart, before it exploded into nothingness. The battlefield fell silent. The Shadowkind vanished, their army dissolving into mist. The city stood broken but not destroyed. The people raised their weapons high, their voices roaring with victory. For the first time in centuries they had won. Carter collapsed to one knee, his body trembling. Elira caught him, holding him close, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "You did it, we did it," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. Carter looked at her, his lips curling into a faint smile. "No, you did it. You gave them hope." Elira's eyes softened, her blush deepening. "And you gave me something more," she whispered. She leaned closer, her voice trembling but certain. "Yes, baby." The people of Eloria bowed to them both. Not to a princess alone, not to a prophecy, but to courage, to love, to legacy. And as the stars burned brighter over the city, Carter knew this was not just the end of a battle. It was the beginning of something far greater. Humanity's legacy had reached the stars, and in the heart of an alien princess it had found a home.